The shadow climb works on real stages too. I learned some more about this move too. In this video I'm going to show you some setups that allow you to do this every time on New Pork City, as well as a lot of custom stage jank I discovered that would make for some really cool puzzle stages. First I'll show you the setup on New Pork City. Conveniently, if you do a ledge jump from this ledge and do nothing else, where Greninja lands is the perfect spot to do the shadow climb on this wall. After landing, you're going to want to do a jump plus side special at the same time to the right. After Greninja wall clings to the wall, you can release side special to teleport to the top. To avoid accidentally moving to the right before the jump and side special, you can use a jab or some other attack and then buffer the jump and side special out of that jab to make sure Greninja stays in place. This setup works 100% of the time. Or you can just YOLO it. I was also able to shadow climb on this wall, but I have no setup for it. Next, let's talk about the move, because I learned a few new things about it and it doesn't work quite the way I thought it did. For example, you don't actually need to wall cling to activate it. But the height is crucial and there are other factors that influence it as well. Before continuing, let me show you the normalized setup for custom stages that will allow you to test this move really quickly with lots of different stage configurations. Starting from the bottom left corner of a block, you want to move down 13 grid squares and then move left 6 grid squares to draw your wall. To activate the shadow climb, simply roll to the left and then while rolling buffer side special to the left. Continue to hold side special until Greninja grabs the wall. When you release side special, Greninja is guaranteed to perform the shadow climb. The 6 grid by 13 grid distance is not the only one that works, but it was the easiest to explain. Once I had a guaranteed setup to do the shadow climb, it was very easy to test the move. Here's what I learned. The block Greninja clings to cannot be wider than the distance his shadow sneak will reach. Greninja will just stay in place. However, if you attach a separate block to the one he clings to, you can make it as wide as you want, and it'll still work. It's only the block that Greninja is actually touching that matters. Surprisingly, it works if you line up the wide and thin walls as well. The next thing to note is that Greninja will teleport to the top of the object he clings to, not the top of the wall he clings to. For example, if I make an unusual shape like this, Greninja is clinging to the right side of the wall, but he'll teleport to the top of the entire object, along that same face. As another example, if I add to the wall by stacking one on top of it, Greninja will only teleport to the top of the original object he clung to, not the top of the attachment. Sadly, this means that Greninja wouldn't teleport to the top of Steve's block tower, even if he could wall cling to his blocks, which I was not able to. Now for some fun stuff. In my previous video, I showed that ceilings can stop the shadow climb. But what if you just slope that ceiling slightly up? What would happen? In this example, Greninja followed the trajectory of the face. However, it's not that simple and doesn't always work this way. Also, if the slope isn't steep enough, it'll act as a ceiling. You can also add ceilings to prevent Greninja from going higher than you want him to. In this next example, notice where Greninja teleports to. His location is the intersection of the bottom of this block and the end of this triangle. Currently, I still don't know what determines whether Greninja will teleport sideways or straight to the top, but it is always related to the geometry of the stage. The same stage geometry will also result with the same teleportation, so it's consistent and can make for some great stage shenanigans. Adjusting the triangle slightly or the ground beneath it can have a completely different result. In this example, Greninja will now teleport to the top along the diagonal face, just like the first example. With different geometry, although it's rare to find, Greninja will teleport to the middle of the diagonal face instead. Now, what if we angle the slope into the wall instead of out of the wall? Whenever we do this, Greninja tends to teleport straight through solid objects. There are even specific positions in geometry where Greninja will just ignore the triangle altogether, even if it's made of lava. Greninja's Shadow Climb will interact with round objects too. Or you can have multiple slopes interact with it to push it around. But if the triangle is positioned wrong, Greninja just might ignore its existence altogether. Honestly, it's best if you just play around with it yourself. Just remember the 13x6 grid spacing setup, and you'll have no trouble getting it to work every time. Then you can adjust your stage geometry as desired and see what happens. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, and if you like this content, please subscribe. It really does mean a lot.